I thought it was 2 o'clock, but no, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. But anyway, we will edit for people listening to us right now. We will edit a shorter version of the video,
Okay.
so you
But
will
anyway, we will.
you will watch this video on social networks, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. So sometimes appearances can be deceiving. In Italy, for example, I'm Italian of origin. It is enough to wear a tie to be called a doctor. In other parts of the world, a journalist is considered a cook for mysterious reasons. Today we
Yes.
speak with Veersen Bhoolai, author of the book No, I Do Not Work in the Kitchen. Thanks for being here.
Let me just correct you. No, I don't work in the kitchen. Surviving war-torn Afghanistan for 3 years.
Okay. The
Sub
first question,
Subtitle
the
right
first,
here. Subtitle
the
right here.
yeah, we will speak about this. The first question is the one that everyone is asking. Do you like to cook? Did you wish you were a cook?
So this question I laughed. First of all, I do like to cook, and I'm a very good cook. I'm originally from the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago. I'm of East Indian descent, and I can cook a variety of wonderful meals, and my foreign friends love them. Having said that, I have never had any aspirations to be a professional chef. No.
Uh, we met in Afghanistan, so I can say I know the guy on the screen during one of the Taliban operations. What were you doing in Afghanistan, and what has your life been like since then?
Okay, I was hired by primarily the International Security Assistance Force, ISAF. And the idea was to be a journalist and an editor, primarily for PSYOPs. But they needed a qualified editor who would take the work of the local Afghans, edit it, and also write his own reports. And that was my job for 3 years. They would be passed on to HQ, who would use it in the local publication. I believe it was called Sada Iazadi, and it was published in one newspaper, but in 3 languages simultaneously, Dari, Farsi, and English. Of course, I edited for the English. How was my
Have
life
you
been since?
changed? Sorry if I interrupt you, but have you changed your way of thinking about Afghanistan after this experience? Was completely different, or was exactly what you were expecting?
Well, I think it had to be a little different because when you're inside, you have a different perspective. You only can know so much from watching news reports and reading newspapers and hearing other people. When you're actually in the country, as you may know, Afghanistan was once a peaceful democratic country. They were very Western, like Italy or Canada. The women went to discos, they danced and everything. And all of this ended in the late 70s. Yes, the warfare was terrible. Um, what surprised me was how beautiful the country was outside of the cities because the countryside was untouched, very green, very beautiful. If you go up in the hills, it was like it was heavenly. It was so beautiful. And I guess what surprised me, but this is normal, I think, if people live in an environment like this, how unfazed the people seem to be by war, gunfire, bombs, etc. There'd be a bomb a kilometer away, the building would shake, they'd look, and they'd go back to work. They'd be shooting outside for like a half an hour. They'd look, and they'd go back to work. And if people like me were peeping through the door at the flashes of light and the gunfire and the RPGs, they'd be like, foreigner, he's worried, he's excited. Yeah, so yeah, you of course do have a different perspective once you're inside the country.
In your opinion, is it possible to go back to a so-called normality in a country like Afghanistan after so many years at war and after so many generations raised and born and raised in this kind of rotten world?
It's a fair question to ask, and I think it is possible, but it's not going to be overnight. If you look at maybe it's not the best examples in the world, but if you look at Colombia or Iraq, how they have morphed or changed over the last 20 years, I think it'll take a generation or more. Um, I think the people have had a taste of democracy. They've had some taste of normalcy, like you don't get killed for listening to music or dancing or going to the movies. But I think it'll take a very long time. This is the Taliban's home. their backs up against the wall. They have nowhere else to go. I think it will take time, but I do not think you will see some change, I think, every decade. But I think in the next 20 years, they will still be in the process of change. It will certainly take some time. Look at Sri Lanka and the Tamil Tigers. Look at Colombia and FARC. These things, unfortunately, don't happen overnight.
Maybe I'm a bit naive, but okay, you were there, you told us for this kind of PSYOP operation. It is not only propaganda what you were doing there. I mean, you were trying also to understand the situation, I would say, from a cultural perspective. Am I wrong?
Well, first of all, let's talk about the propaganda part. You are not wrong. That was what PSYOPs do, not me. I can honestly say me. I assume the stories my reporters gave me were true. I edited, and any story I did, I actually did and actually existed. I didn't make up names or make up events. I'll be honest with you, I was not there from a cultural perspective, but you cannot help but be, observe the culture and become part of the culture to some degree if you so wish. And this is how you get a better appreciation of the country, because you're with the people, you're listening to them, you're seeing how they live their lives. And at the end of the day, in any country of the world, be it Afghanistan or anywhere else, they're just like you and me. They want to have a life, they want to have a family, and they want to go forward in life. That's all they want. Nobody really wants warfare or to be harassed by the police or foreigners and so on. And of course, nobody appreciates, and I put it in my book, being treated like a second-class citizen in their own country by the foreigners, the NATO soldiers, and so
on. As I told you, I am of Italian origin and I come from the southern part of the country. So it is easy for me, or it was easy when I used to live there, to meet people somehow connected to the mafia world, let's say. I assume that when you were in Afghanistan was also possible more or less to get in contact with Taliban. How was this kind of encounter?
Well, first of all, no. I tried very hard not to get in contact with the Taliban. What happened?
Maybe you didn't know it, or you weren't supposed to.
Exactly. What happened was, when you go outside, you do not know who the Taliban are. They don't wear fatigues. They don't wear uniforms. They don't advertise themselves. And you got to be nuts in the small towns to go outside at night, because that's when the Taliban are more free, with the exception of Kabul. I had reporters. They went out. What I would do is I would go out with them if they deemed it safe enough. So did I ever knowingly meet the Taliban? Absolutely not. Were they probably all around me on the street at times? Probably. But what I did do, and I say this respectfully, I tried to go, I look like this, so I can blend in Afghanistan. And my reporters were local. So I tried never to walk around or drive around with Caucasian people, because they stood out too much, especially in a NATO vehicle. It's like a big X going through the city. You're asking for somebody to shoot at you. So I would always go out with my reporters, and I blended in fine. And I followed their lead. Did I ever directly meet the Taliban? No, I observed them from time to time when they were arrested. But no, I never went out to meet any of
them. We joke about it, and you are the first to do it, but it's quite annoying. It must be quite annoying that a Canadian like you was looked down upon, so to speak. Has anything changed over the years?
You mean for me?
Yeah, for you and in general, because I had this kind of bad experience. I was Italian. I was working with a Turkish team, and I was looked like, he's not a good professional by Americans, UK administratives, or by even Frenchies.
Mm-hmm. Really, no. It was really accentuated in Afghanistan, because, and I tried to be understanding in the beginning, but I said, okay, I know what the enemy looks like. I wore my ID, and if you look around some camps, the camps are very cosmopolitan, and the people can come from anywhere, and this is why you wear your ID. And I would like looks the moment I walked in, or I would just be spoken to in a manner as if I was some intruder, and I would have to politely explain, well, this is my ID, and this is why I'm here, and so on and so on. After Afghanistan, no, I mean, I was in places like Istanbul and Colombia, and not really. I never felt aware of my race or the color of my skin in those cities. But sadly, in Afghanistan, yes, on a daily basis. And sometimes they got to know you and they relaxed a bit. But I know it's another aspect of haven't they taught them how to read in the British Army, because I'm wearing my ID right here. It's there for see, and I had a pretty high clearance. I had a very high level of clearance. The level of clearance had nothing to do with the color of my skin, but rather my qualifications and my nationality. And that's at some point you just try to like not notice it, remember your salary, and proceed with your life.
Can you tell us a nice, sad, or even worthy episode that happened to you while writing the book?
Well, while writing the book, no, but I can tell you about two newsworthy episodes or noteworthy episodes about me in the book, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So one was it was Christmas of 2009. I was staying in a hotel called the Hital Hotel, and normally we could stay in camp, but because I was already living in a camp and I wanted to stay in a room with TV and nice bed and so on, so I paid for it myself. And whenever I had been there before and I was going out for the taxi, I'd go outside and I'd wait, fresh air, green grass. I would stand up next to the security guard. My female colleague never went out. She was always worried about a possible attack. And she was more experienced than me, and she was right. I would have conversations with the security guard, a very youthful fellow. I could not speak the language, but I do speak some degree of Turkish. And I would speak Turkish, he would speak Dari, and we would, every 5 words, we would understand each other. And we would smile and laugh. It was Christmas time, it was cold, and I said, you know what? The taxi is always late, 30 or 45 minutes. I am not going out there. I'm going to wait in here. I asked the assistant manager for change for 50 to pay the taxi. He exited, and within 5 seconds, there was a boom. The whole room went across my face. The doors flew across the room, all the window glass, plexiglass was all over me. But we knew it was a bomb. So first thing is I checked for blood, no blood. I checked for my legs. My legs were still there. I said, well, that's good. So I looked outside in the car park expecting to see an exploded car or something, but there was nothing. The car park was completely empty. And I was like, okay, what had happened about probably less than 100 meters from the hotel at the first corner? A suicide bomber had blown up a house with a car. And of course, if you're within the perimeter of the blast, you're going to feel it. Now, I was very lucky. I had 3 walls between me and the blast, so it kind of buffered the blast. The young fellow I used to stand next to, he was obliterated. His body parts were blown over the gate of the hotel, traveled about 100 odd feet. And I didn't realize it at the time because we were running to the basement to hide. But the next day I saw them shoveling like hand, foot, shoe, leg into a garbage bag. And I was like, wow. Because I was supposed to be standing next to him. And that one day I changed my routine, it saved my life. And I always think about him. And I was, of course, very grateful that I changed my routine that day. I figured it was a gift from God. The other thing is something that you and I would take for granted. When I was in Kunduz, where we met, I had been told by command, if you can help out in the camp or in the local community, if you've got some skills you can offer them, please do so. Because we want to we want to help out people. Now, I'm qualified to teach English as a second language. So through my reporters, I communicated with the local university. I said, look, I'm qualified. I've got my CELTA. I'm experienced. I'm native. And if you want, I can give you about 4 hours a week for free. Well, they were in shock. In a war zone, qualified, free, come over. And so they somehow had me doing 8. Now, this university was being renovated. New structures were being built. And the washrooms they had were concrete, but they didn't have toilets. They had basically a hole in the floor and a window. And each toilet stall was piled up with feces, human feces, all over the floor, like an inch high. And I tried when I went to teach a class not to drink much and never to eat anything. Every time, without fail, I would have to urinate before I left. And it was a torturous experience. I would just look through the window, focus on a leaf of a tree, do what I had to do, and try to get out of there. And I said, I do not know how the students who live here put up with this. Because I would leave. I couldn't live like that. I wouldn't believe the moment they built the proper toilets and they were functioning, I never needed to use the washroom again. And but watch all that human feces pile up from stall to stall to stall. It made me realize how the little things we take for granted in our own country, like going to school, potable water, washrooms, stuff like that.
I am absolutely no hero, and I spent only 6 months compared to you in Afghanistan. But the fact that it was so easy to be killed, or that was such a risky situation, has changed you as a person? I don't know, you've become maybe more religious, or you have changed your way of being?
It has to shape you in a certain way, without a doubt. Especially as I was outside of Kabul, I was more prone to attacks and so on. The one with the bomb, the one where I missed the bomb. I mean, Alberto, it wasn't like I was maybe going to get hurt or maybe going to die. I was going to die, and I was going to be obliterated into little pieces. And all I could think was, they put this guy in a garbage bag. Were they going to put me in a garbage bag? Were they going to at least separate our body parts? How are my parents supposed to receive my body? You know, these people are shoveling stuff into a garbage bag. And I really, think the title is in chapter Boom and a Gift from God, in the book. And I realized God gave me a chance that day. Had it been a month earlier, it wouldn't have been so cool. I would have stepped outside and I would have died. And I said to myself, God has given me a chance to move on with my life, a chance to live. And what I tried to do was appreciate every day and to make something of my life, make the most of my life, not to take what time I have on this earth for granted.
Some shrinks think that writing can be helpful, can help you. I think that your book is kind of a gift that you give to the others in order to share your life experience with others. Why did you write this book?
Very good question. Let me be frank and tell you, I never thought this could be a book. What happened is I went to Afghanistan and I said, this is a historic moment. Afghanistan, to my generation, is what the Vietnam War was to my parents' generation. And I said, this could be very historic years from now, the Afghan War. Let me keep a journal, because you're not going to have a super clear memory 20, 30 years from now. Let me keep a journal and look, have something to look back on. What I did once I kept the journal, Alberto, is I would send emails to friends. I said, this is what's happening. And some of them were enthralled. They were absolutely enthralled. And they said, listen, this could be a book. I mean, I feel like I'm there. I feel like I'm experiencing it with you. This could be a movie. And I was like, really? Yeah. And they kept saying that. And I was like, maybe. And last year, I finished another book I've been working on, which will be released on October 1st of this year, Trials and Tribulations. I finished the book just when the pandemic was really coming across hard around the world, April of last year. And I said, I've got some free time. We're on a lockdown. I'm working from home. And I remembered my cousin's words the Christmas before. Listen, an Afghan journal, that could be a bestseller, really. And I said, well, I've got free time. So I took the journal, edited it, turned it into a book. And I'm probably one of the few guys in the world that wrote and published a book that I didn't think could be a book. Your perspective is different. To me, I got up. It was sub-zero in the tent. I slept on my desk. There was a bomb. There was a missile. But I didn't think it was that amazing, and I was wrong. And to the people who encouraged me, I thank them in the book, and because I have gotten feedback from people via Amazon and so on, and it was exactly what my friends and family said. They said, I feel like I'm there. It's gripping. Two comments I would like to repeat. A girl from UK saying, I read it in one day and I forgot to eat lunch. A colleague of mine via LinkedIn says, every night before I go to bed, I read 2 pages because I want it to last. And I have to thank the people who encouraged me. For me, it was an existence in Afghanistan was mainly tedious, but sometimes you don't see what other people see. And I am very glad that they encouraged me to make it into a book, because a lot of people have shown appreciation for it.
Let's leave the planet Afghanistan and let's go on another planet, Latin America, a region of the world that you know very, very well. You've made a series of interesting videos about Cuba, videos that you can find online, where you talk about the difficult life within a regime like the Caribbean one. But you did it in a very informal way. You say and show things that the media may not show. What's your approach to journalism? Do you hide to be able to see things that others do not see? How do you approach people, locals?
Well, I'll be honest with you. The Cuban thing was just me being a tourist, but the journalist in me and the person in me was quite fascinated to see aspects of Cuban culture that we may not be getting that information in abundance in our part of the world. And what really, really got me was, okay, there's a lot of commercial activity, a lot of free enterprise in this communist country. And then, of course, I did not expect the challenges to access food. I had my own apartment. I was in a hotel. And I was never trying to be journalistic. I was just trying to say to my friends, hey, this is what happened today. Probably very much like the Afghan memoir. This is what happened today, and this is the experience I had, and this is ridiculous. And but this is what's happening. Or on the flip side, this is what you don't know about Cuba, and this is what happened last night. This is what happened today. And my friends like yourself found it very interesting. I did not expect to have that level of reaction, and some people found it very humorous. I wasn't trying to be humorous. I was just trying to say this is what happened. So it wasn't even being done from a journalism perspective. It was just being done from the perspective of and maybe it's a journalist within me, and I didn't even realize it. But this is me finding out fascinating facts about Cuba, and I'd like to share it with you, the people living outside, because you may not be aware of it.
Now there are videos, but in general, do you think, as a journalist, is it complicated to be simply believed? Because people maybe the things you have experienced are so crazy, so incredible that normal people, in brackets, maybe wouldn't believe it.
You know, when it's happening to you, it's just a normal existence. You know, it's not like I thought I was James Bond or Rambo or something. I was in Afghanistan. This happened. I was in Cuba. This happened. I have never thought of it that way, Alberto. No one has ever questioned me about it or questioned my credibility. Nope, I never had that issue.
And you also lived in Colombia, a country that I know quite well. And right now, the country is in the throes of a social revolt. There's a curfew in many cities. The police are accused of using excessive force. The country, as a president, was proved quite incapable of governing. On the other hand, however, I do not remember in the history of the country such a process of, let's say, destabilization towards a president. What's your opinion on this? What's Colombia to you?
Well, okay, let's start with your very last question. What's Colombia to me? I lived in Colombia for about 6 years on and off. 5 of those years, I think, were consecutive. It's a beautiful country. It's a country that I think gets a raw deal. They've been stigmatized. Colombia only makes the news when something negative happens. Cocaine, guerrillas, protests. I will say that they have worked hard to diversify their economy. The danger factor, I mean, I lived there for 5 years. I've had friends living there for 20, 30 years. And it's no different than living it was really bad in the 80s and 90s. But post 2000, it's no different than living in Miami, Los Angeles, or New York. Yes, you have to be careful. But Colombia is a beautiful country with a lot to offer. In addition to, as I said, diversifying the export base. Medellin is one of the most beautiful cities you will ever visit. It's a top retirement spot. Cartagena is one of the tourism jewels of Latin America. So Colombia tends to get a raw deal sometimes. There is a lot of positivity, and it does not seem to make the news. I don't know why, unless you really look for it on the internet. Regarding what you just said about the president and what's been happening, yes, he does not always seem to have a lot of credibility. In the last 3 years, there've been a lot of accusations about community leaders being murdered, protesters being murdered, and with no one really taking the blame or being culpable. A lot of impunity. So he has lost a lot of respect. Around late March of last year, when the world was beginning to realize how truly serious COVID-19 was, different mayors throughout the cities said, "Okay, let's have a lockdown. Let's be safe." And he said, "No, we don't need a lockdown. There'll be no lockdown." They simply ignored him. They had a lockdown. Barranquilla, Cali, everywhere else, Cartagena, and when he realized he was being ignored, 2, 3 days later, he said, okay, let's work together. Let's work together. He does not seem to enjoy a great deal of credibility with his people. Also, you have to understand, too, that I told you that the Colombian economy has come forward in the last 20 years. They have diversified the export base. But what has been saddening about this is that the gap between the rich and the poor has more or less stayed the same or become worse. The rich have just become super rich, and the middle class has grown just a bit. And I think people got a little frustrated. It's one thing on top of another, on top of another, on top of another. Now you're talking about taxes. And then, of course, when they protest, you see the police shooting canisters directly at people. This would infuriate, I think, any nation, any country.
Veersen Bhoolai, thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you, Alberto. Thank you for speaking with me.
And I say to everyone, no, I don't work in the kitchen. Buy the book.
Beautiful book. Beautiful cover.
Beautiful cover, beautiful book. Thank you.
Thank you, Alberto.